Look twice at the grey dress, and you'll hear Balmoral. No brooch, no slogan, no speech. Just a whisper of tartan stitched inside a London day, and a message you feel before you name it. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepped into view this week in a new Alessandra Rich midi and, without raising her voice, turned the whole room to a lower, steadier key. At first glance it was simply elegant, a soft grey ground, a heritage check that seems to carry Highland air in its threads, gently puffed sleeves lifting the line, a neat waist drawing the eye, and that unmistakable Peter Pan collar framing her face with a calm light. Look again and the echo lands, the gentle rhyme with Queen Elizabeth II's last photograph at Balmoral, tartan at her knees, duty in her smile. Not imitation. Conversation. Catherine understands what the older generation has always known: in this family, clothes are a language and the best sentences are tailored. Red arrives at diplomatic meetings before the words do. Pearls turn up at remembrance like old friends who know the hymn numbers. A small enamel pin can carry a regiment, a promise, a grief. A bow at the neckline can nod to a cause without tugging at a sleeve. And sometimes the most eloquent paragraph is cut in cloth, modern in silhouette, rooted in tradition, designed to sit correctly under merciless lights and unblinking lenses and still say, without fuss, I remember, and I will keep the line. The tone mattered as much as the cut. This was a week for composure, not fireworks, for steadiness, not spectacle. No hard metallics, no headline hue to shout over the moment. The palette stayed respectful, the finish stayed restrained. If you've watched her for years, you'll recognize the discipline: let one idea lead and let everything else fall in behind. The heels were sleek but soft-spoken, the hair was left in loose, polished waves. Jewelry was pared down to a murmur so the dress could carry the note of remembrance without a competing chorus. It's the same judgment you see at cenotaphs, cathedrals, village halls, and school gymnasiums: different rooms, one register. You keep faith with a country not only by what you say, but by refusing to waste its attention. That Peter Pan collar did more work than any necklace could. Flat, rounded, quietly architectural, it throws soft light toward the face and nods to a century of British wardrobes, school rooms and Sunday best, framed class photos in albums your hands remember as much as your eyes. On a princess it reads like courtesy made visible. On a day tuned to heritage it reads like a promise to keep faith with the old notes even as the arrangement changes. Diana wore collars like punctuation. The late queen made hers a frame for composure, princess, and still favors a neat, functional line that treats fabric as a tool. Catherine's collar sits in that lineage, modernized by a cleaner edge, and a whisper of contrast that keeps it crisp under cameras. Alessandra Rich is a trusted hand for that balance. The house is expert at stitching memory to movement so a garment feels ready for a day's work, walking quickly, turning kindly, bending to talk at child height, kneeling beside a display without creasing like a paper fan. You could see the practicality in the pattern placement and the way the sleeves kept their cloud without swallowing the wrist. Structure holds the shape, grace holds the gaze. The print matched across seams so the eye reads calm, not interruption. The collar sits a breath below the throat so the voice carries clearly, a tiny but crucial refinement any television producer or old-school couturier would salute. Try speaking to a room in a high neck and you'll learn why the best fitters mark, step back, and lower by a finger's width. That's not fashion, that's experience. Grey, chosen badly, can flatten a person. Chosen well, it breathes. This grey was the British kind that knows rain, the kind that makes white pearls glow and brings color to cheeks without needing rouge. It nodded to the granite of Decide, to the stone staircases of old palaces, to skies that have taught a country how to dress for a forecast that can change between doors. It also nodded, quietly, to a cost-of-living moment when a princess in neon gloss would feel tone-deaf. Style can comfort without spending, Heritage prints whisper, "You know me," to a nation that keeps a tartan scarf by the door, and the old eye, Britain, America. Anyone who remembers utility labels and the virtue of mending, recognizes the respect in restraint. Look closer and the make tells its own story. The hem was weighted just enough to sit, not swing. The shoulder line shaped to carry a handbag and a day's schedule without barking at the collarbone. The zip invisible, because attention should stay where faces are. The lining moved with her, no clinging, no flash, because whoever signed off this dress knows rain, knows draft halls, knows the life of a working wardrobe. The sleeves balanced prettiness with purpose, volume high enough to look new, neat at the cuff so a handshake is not swallowed by a cloud. These are the adjustments that separate catalog from craft. You don't notice them until you do, and then you can't stop appreciating the mercy. Hair, glossed and movable, did its share of quiet work. Older viewers know this too. A good blow-dry is not vanity under lights, it's clarity. Stray wisps become halos in camera glare, and halos steal attention. Smooth the frame, and the face can speak. The pumps, likewise, were not a flourish but a tool, enough lift to lengthen the line under a midi, not so much that a stride shortens to a careful totter. 2 steps on a shallow dais tell you more about a shoe than any runway will. She took them as if the stairs had been measured to her foot. The reference, Balmoral, sat where it should, visible to anyone who remembered that last image, invisible to anyone new to the story. That's Catherine's register. She rarely underlines, she trusts you to connect the threads. It's the difference between costume and conversation. Costume reenacts, conversation renews. You could sense the care in avoiding literal tartan. A hint of check is a nod. A head-to-toe homage would be theatre, and theatre is not what this family needs on days when memory outweighs gossip. The message was, I see what you see. I carry what you carry, let's get on. Trace her wardrobe across the years and a pattern emerges that older eyes recognize immediately. She dresses in 3 layers at once: service, setting, story. Service first. Clothes that let the work happen without obstruction or apology. Setting next. Read the room, read the weather, read the etiquette of a sober morning or a cheerful afternoon, and tune accordingly. Story last. A texture, a collar, a familiar plaid that pulls a thread from the past into the present. Do all 3 cleanly, and the photograph will still make sense in 20 years. That's not trend chasing, that's stewardship. This appearance did something else cameras can't quite show. It put people at ease. Heritage print says, "You know me," to a country that has lived long with its own routines. Grey carries every conversation without crowding it. The silhouette is formal enough for an image that will live forever and humane enough for a hallway chat that will be forgotten by tea time. You could see the room adjust the way good rooms do, backs a touch straighter, voices a shade softer, because someone had arrived who understands how to arrive, not to take the oxygen, but to make breathing easier. For those who read the smaller signals, there were other courtesies folded in. No jangling bracelets to fight a microphone. No sharp hardware to flick the eye every time a wrist turned. A clutch that tucked under the arm so hands stayed free for handshakes. For waves that look like acknowledgement rather than choreography. For reassuring touches that don't turn into fuss. There's a politeness in that, particularly when the schedule involves talking to children or veterans, or staff who have been on their feet longer than you. Make the body available to the moment, the clothes should obey. Compare the moment with the wardrobes of royal women across the last century, and the logic sharpens. Queen Mary's grandeur put the monarchy on a stage, when it still needed to be larger than life. Elizabeth the Queen Mother softened that stage with pinks and blues that felt like hospitality. The late Queen learned to be visible in every kind of weather and crowd by wearing a single clear color, and a hat that lifted faces toward light. Diana flirted with fashion speed and taught the institution how to be modern without dissolving, and reminded everyone that utility can be a form of grace. Catherine has learned the grammar and edited it for a world that scrolls. She knows when to be seen and when to be understood, and she knows that on days when you allude to Balmoral you are not the headline, you are the frame. The American eye, too, especially the older one, reads this fluently. There's a reason the quiet English dress still photographs like reassurance in Boston, or Dallas, or Palm Beach. It respects the viewer's intelligence. It says, I know you understand a good hem and a bad day. I know you have worn your best coat to difficult rooms. I know that steadiness is not dullness. You don't need to love monarchy to recognize the courtesy in a woman who chooses to be legible rather than loud. It would be easy, in a time that rewards shouting, to call all this overthinking. It isn't. In institutions built on continuity, detail is duty. A hem that behaves is an apology you don't have to make. A collar that flatters is an attention you don't have to demand. A palette that soothes is a room you don't have to rescue with extra charm. Multiply that across 3 engagements a day, 10 days a month, 12 months a year, across hospitals and hospices and gyms and barracks and church porches, and you begin to see why the quiet decisions matter. There's also a small, bracing modernity inside the heritage. The cut is cleaner than any 1950s pattern book. The fabric handles stage light and sudden rain. The internal architecture lets a mother of 3 move at the pace of a working day. The economy, repeat and restyle, borrow and pair, has been there for years, and older viewers, who have never believed that dignity must be expensive, notice. The younger ones learn, without a lecture, that elegance is a discipline, not a price tag. If you felt warmed by the sight, you weren't imagining it. There is comfort in continuity that doesn't calcify. The dress read as a small reaffirmation that the conversation between generations is still fluent. The late Queen's vocabulary of service hasn't been mislaid. It has been absorbed and spoken with a younger mouth. You could sense it in the way Catherine's eye contact lands and holds, in the way a laugh arrives and then yields, in the way she gives the headline to the room. That is not accident. That is habit. Some tributes thump the table. This one kept time with a wristwatch. The Balmoral echo sat exactly where it belonged, a suggestion in the check, a tone in the grey, a memory pressed, but not paraded. The late Queen would have liked that. She preferred the kind of homage that lets the work go on. So did the country, if the faces in the crowd are any guide. Older men in weathered coats, women with good handbags and better instincts, younger parents holding a child a little higher so the child could see what composure looks like up close. You don't teach that with a lecture. You teach it with a good dress on the right day. In the end, it was just a grey midi with a rounded collar you could trace with your fingertip. And also not just at all. Flags are only fabric and hymns are only words, until you carry them together for long enough that meaning lives in them. Balmoral tartan, Peter Pan collars, the measured grey of a British sky before rain, these are notes in our shared ear. When a senior royal arranges them cleanly, older hearts hear it and younger hearts learn it without being told. Catherine didn't spell it out, she wore it. Softly, correctly, with fabric that knows where it came from and a line that knows where it's going, she said enough.